in America, it's hard for us to win. But we need to focus on taking care of our material needs while building up a anti-war movement, an anti-capitalist movement, a proletariat movement. So we need to focus on mutual aid. That is what Rome is doing with Tour for the Poor. That is what we're doing, launching RBN chapters all over this country, so we can separate ourselves from the capitalist system. Once we separate ourselves from the capitalist system by building mutual aid societies, we show up and build those mutual aid societies via third party. So when we do our food drives, whenever we show up and help people, we're letting people know that we showed up. You have a mutual aid party that show up, that are taking care of the people while the politicians is abandoning us. We build this movement, we get on the debate stage. All we need is 5%. And a lot of people don't know that 5% in the third party gets you federal funding. 15% puts you on a national debate stage. Now, remember, 3% is all you really need historically to have massive social change. And then a lot of people, like, if you shut stuff down via general strike, there are a lot of people who are like, oh, just give them what they want, right? So you just need to build that momentum. If we had a third party to get 5% federal funding, running on popular ideas, economic populism while ending the war, that coalition is already here. We just need to put it together. Then if we get to 15%, we're talking about a real game changer where we had a third party candidate. What I would like to see a populist, anti-war third party candidate calling out neocons on both sides. And if you got 15% of the population, enough to get you on the debate stage, you're talking about serious coalition building power that the establishment have to acknowledge. And if they don't acknowledge and they continue to fight us and be anti-democratic, then we talk about general strikes. Then we talk about shutting society down. This is when we get into the topic that the boutique managerial class, a lot of people who are comfortable, they don't want to have the discussion because they don't want society shut down. But that is what we must do. And with the population and with the populace on our side, this is how you enact change. Now, George, everything I just described to you, this is a long process. Like, it's not easy. It takes a lot of revolutionary discipline, but that's why we need to get started right now.
Right now.
Right now.
What's popping? My friends, my family. You guys see, I outline RBN's theory of change here. That is based on movement building. It is not based on us wishing that some hero shows up and somehow saves us. As I describe my vision for what a third-party movement will look like, the reaction of the professional managerial class, as I explained, and as you guys saw, Krystal Ball, when asked about third parties, in reference to Marianne Williamson, she told us to grow up. Get serious, grow up. Which one of us have a more coherent theory of change? Because I can outline it for many people. What I'm outlining takes a lot of work, but this will give a lot of political capital and power to the people and allow us to separate ourselves from this violent and brutal capitalist system. So are we going to get Medicare for all anytime soon? No. We're not going to get Medicare for all no matter if we go to the Democratic Party or go to the third party. But as I lay out my theory of change here, you guys see the emphasis of third party mutual aid community building. So yes, the third party may not be winning immediately, but with the main focus of the third party being meeting people's material needs, engaging in mutual aid, showing up for people, that is how we help each other survive capitalism as we continue to build a movement to overthrow capitalism. This is a very crucial part, because when you form a mutual aid society, an organization like I'm trying to in Kansas City, you don't have to run campaign ads. You don't have to run the boutique boutique campaign. It's a horrible waste of money. People will support your party because you showed up for them. That you have their material interests at heart. That you calling out both parties. This is the kind of analysis that you will never get from Breaking Points. You won't get it from Vanguard. You won't get it from Cal. You won't get it from Majority Report or anyone who calls themselves left channels. The Vanguard have the nerve to call themselves anti-capitalist, but they can't even sum up a strategy or a theory of change that is rooted in anti-capitalist principles. What I am telling you guys is rooted in anti-capitalist principles. I believe that we should run third party. I am supportive of a small effort towards electoral politics, which mostly results, which should pour into ballot initiatives and running socialist, Marxist, third-party organizations, not just any dumbass, right? We got to be a smarter proletariat. We gotta have a strategy instead of this nonsense where they just pretend, oh, let's have vibes. Let's support Marianne Williamson and hope the working class will be okay. The only people that are going to benefit from Marianne Williamson campaign is her, because she wants to sell books, people like Peter Dow, who's on salary, and the people who will benefit via clicks and views and monetize interviews with her. That's why they lie and they bullshit you guys. That's why we have been adamant in calling out the scourge of access journalism. Because instead of having a serious discussion on how we move this left movement after Bernie Sanders betrayed us, they like, come on, let's just pray that Marianne Williamson can do that, something that Bernie cannot do. Let's waste tens of millions of dollars once again, and let's just pray things will be okay. Surely, we know that Marianne Williamson is not as good as Bernie Sanders, but if we gave her hundreds of millions of dollars, I'm sure things would work out. And who are the only people saying this? And we know these are the only people because Marianne Williamson poll numbers are horrible. The people who are friends with her, Krystal Ball. And these people are particularly full of shit. Because I remember during the early discourse about this, where they said, we need anyone that can run a primary challenge against Joe Biden. And the people who was Marianne Williamson friends, who tried to manufacture consent for Marianne Williamson, they were saying stuff like this. They were saying, well, we're not pushing Marianne Williamson because she's our friend. We are pushing this because on principle, we want a credible primary challenger for Joe Biden. Do you guys remember that? You guys remember when they were saying that? Oh, well, I'm not pushing Marianne because she's our friend. I just want someone to challenge Joe Biden. Bullshit. So I'm post-duopoly left. I'm not going to vote in the primary. Don't plan on supporting anyone financially as well. Not planning on supporting any of them. But if you was one of the people that actually like, man, I think we should have a primary challenge on Joe Biden, and I am only supporting Marianne Williamson because of that, wouldn't you support RFK considering RFK is at 20%? You guys know RFK is doing better than Ron DeSantis is doing against Donald Trump. So the people who, like Krystal Ball, we'll get into her very soon, the people like the Vanguard, many of these people that say, well, we're not just friends with Marianne, we just want to see a primary challenger. Well, if that was the case, you guys would support RFK, wouldn't you? Because he's the most credible primary challenger to Joe Biden. The fact that they are not, and not only are they not supporting RFK, even though they support the strategy of going through the Democratic Party, they're actively trying to tear him down, which shows that it was never about any principles. It was never about just having a primary challenger in the Democratic Party. It was all about elevating their friend who was going to give them access to them. So when this strategy that they came up with, were we going to push Marianne Williamson? The first thing that me and CJ came up, one of the first things, we were like, okay, what happens if Marianne Williamson is not the only person running like you guys claim? There's a giant hole in your plan. Now, Marianne Williamson and their supporters are 100% okay with playing spoiler in this election. You have someone else who has over 2 times more support for Marianne Williamson than Marianne Williamson. But they support her because they're her friends. They give ridiculous political analysis because she's her friend. And that is what we called out. And people thought that, they're going to be professional about this, even though they're friends. And Krystal Ball had an interview with RFK that showed that is absolutely not the case. Absolutely not the case. My brother CJ, my brother Kit, did a great stream on this earlier. I wanted to join them by watching the big Champions League semifinal game. Man City beat the fuck out of Real Madrid. I don't know how many of you guys watch European soccer. European soccer is like the only non-combat sport that I like. So that's why I didn't join today. I have a lot to say on this, so I'm going to get into it. first thing I noticed when I saw this interview, and this is how you know that Marianne Williamson, Krystal Ball, did this interview to try to chip at RFK. Because Krystal wanted to anoint Marianne. So the Vanguard, Breaking Points, Kyle Kalinske, and all of these Marianne Williamson stands have been in shambles. They've been in shambles ever since RFK announced. Because even though I'm not supporting any of them, RFK is undeniably the better candidate. If RFK and Marianne Williamson got into the debate, there is no doubt in my mind RFK will run her over, run through her, which is why they're not calling for it. But to compensate for this, Krystal Ball, who had Marianne Williamson officiate her wedding, decided to do this complete sham of an interview. And I have this part, because this part right here is actually not giving enough coverage. This is how I knew what Krystal Ball's intent was. Listen to this part of the interview.
A little bit about that.
Oh, let me turn it up. Let's listen to this part.
We both watched a lot of interviews of you, and both on a general interest, but also to prepare for this interview and sitting down with you. And I think some of the key issues that you tend to focus on are COVID, the Ukraine war, and censorship. Those are all issues where you seem to be in basic agreement with the former president, Donald Trump. So I'd love for you to lay out, what do you see as some of the most critical differences you have with the former president?
What? This is the amazing analysis that you get from the professional managerial class. And I worked on the Bernie Sanders campaign, guys. I remember the same tactics that they use on Bernie Sanders. They used to say stuff like this. They say, hey, your criticism of Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation sounds very similar to Trump. You're saying that we shouldn't trust the establishment. Why do you sound just like Trump? That is what they used to say about Bernie all the time. To plant seeds into the liberal audience that there are similarities between Trump and Bernie, so you should be afraid. So Krystal, right off the bat, want her audience to compare RFK to Trump. This is a long-time media strategy to demonize candidates that they do not like. They did the same thing to Bernie Sanders. So as soon as I saw this part out, my ear perked up, and I knew immediately what Krystal Ball was doing. Because she wanted to activate the tribalistic brain of her shit-lipped supporters. RFK Trump, I don't like the guy. And you know she is full of shit, because before she asked the question, she says, I watched hours and hours of interviews with you. You watched hours of interviews with RFK Jr., and after that, you conclude that he's similar to Trump? Do anyone believe that? Do anyone believe that Krystal Ball believes that? I heard RFK speak not for hours. I maybe got a combined total of 30 to 50 minutes of RFK time listening to him speak. And after listening to RFK speak for 30 to 50 minutes, I wouldn't even begin to think of Donald Trump. What does it say about Krystal Ball that she hears someone speak about against the Ukraine war, call out Big Pharma, and all of a sudden you comparing him to Trump? Do you guys believe that she believed that? I don't. I don't at all. She is doing an establishment trick that she learned from the establishment. To be clear. Now, I'm gonna get to the anti-vax part. Actually, I'll let you guys hear his answer just in case you don't know. Let's repeat this unbelievably MSNBC. This is an MSNBC question. Let's listen to this.
Let me ask you a little bit about that, because we both watched a lot of interviews of you, and both on a general interest, but also to prepare for this interview and sitting down with you. And I think some of the key issues that you tend to focus on are COVID, the Ukraine war, and censorship. Those are all issues where you seem to be in basic agreement with the former president, Donald Trump. So I'd love for you to lay out, what do you see as some of the most critical differences you have with the former president?
So RFK nicer than me. Listen to his answer.
Well, I have a lot of not only issue differences, but stylistic differences. I think my approach to people and politics is very different. I'd say, in terms of issues, probably the biggest departure is on the environment. And in fact, my first encounter with Donald Trump is that I sued him twice, in the years before he was president, to block his construction of two golf courses, which I said.
So you did all this research on RFK, Krystal Ball, but you didn't know that he sued Trump. Very interesting.
Successfully did in the New York City watershed. But on all of the, environmental issues, I think my worldview is very different than the president's.
Way different. And once again, RFK is handling this question with amazing grace, which is why I would never be a politician, because this is the best strategy, right? But I couldn't do it. Because if you ask me this question about RFK, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And that's essentially what he says here. At the very end, in a very polite way, he said, dude, I am completely different from Trump. I would say I am completely different with Trump. What the fuck is wrong with you for asking me that question? Even implying that I am similar to Trump. Right? So that's his I want to get to that answer because there's a lot of stuff in this interview worth talking about. And before I get to the vaccine debate, I do want to cover a criticism I have of RFK. Once again, none of these people are my candidates. But because his position on the Ukraine war, because he generally supports single payer in practice, he supports a lot of progressive ideas, economic reformation. The fact that he calling out big pharma and war immediately makes him way better than Marianne Williamson. But this answer regarding Medicare for all, can't ignore. We got to critically break this down. Luckily, Breaking Points is better than us. They got timestamps, so I'm gonna go to this part here.
As you know, every other developed nation in the world has universal health care. Do you support universal health care through a Medicare for all program or something similar?
I would say my highest ambition would be to have a single payer program, which, with that people who want to have private programs can go ahead and do that. But
Nope. What do you say? Now you gotta RFK, you gotta clarify when you say that. Let's play it again.
I would say my highest ambition would be to have a single payer program, which, with that people who want to have private programs can go ahead and do that.
That is not single payer healthcare, RFK. The point of single payer healthcare is that you don't have multiple tiers of healthcare. Now, you can have cosmetic surgery. You can have, because cosmetic surgery, most people don't even believe that should be covered via single payer, right? So you can get extension healthcare if you want a nose job, if you want a boob job or something like that, right? But the single payer healthcare system that we advocate for is everyone has the same tier, because if you start having people have private healthcare insurance, then you have healthy people, wealthy people outside of the pool. If you have people outside of the single payer pool, that does not drive down the cost, which single payer healthcare would do. You will have great people healthcare, rich people healthcare versus what everyone else has. So you want to design a single payer system that have dental and everything else. You want a universal single payer plan, which makes private plans insignificant, irrelevant. So everyone is paying to the same pool. This drives down healthcare cost. So this is not a good answer by RFK. Well, he did say he supports single payer in theory. He would love to make it happen, but we are talking about anointing a leader here. There's someone who's not going to be a leader on this issue, and this is someone who had grandparents, cousins, uncles, aunts going to medical debt who died. Everyone in is single payer. Saying that some people should have private healthcare, that is not single payer. That is not single payer. That was the problem with Tosi's bill.
But this is one of my biggest issues, guys. And this is something that you can't waver on. So this is not a good answer by RFK, but I'll let him continue.
But to have a single payer blood program that is available to everybody, I don't know how politically realistic that is. But, if you ask me if I were designing the system from the beginning, that's what I would do.
Now, there's some people that in this interview, and I gave a critique of his answer on single payer because I think he's misinformed. If you support single payer, you shouldn't be advocating for private healthcare. But people are saying that RFK is against single payer. I would say that is misleading because you clearly see here, he said he wants single payer. He just thinks it's unrealistic. It's not going to happen. Now, that's what most progressives say at this point. We like Medicare for all, but probably not going to happen. So there are a lot of Marianne Williamson people that are saying that RFK is against single payer. That is not what I'm hearing. I am hearing that he's not going to fight for it. And the fact that he don't really understand the ask of single payer healthcare, which is not great things, but I think we got to be clear on that.
Right. The system now is broken. We pay the most for healthcare in the world. I think we're 79th. We're behind like Costa Rica and Cuba in terms of health outcomes. We have the highest level of chronic disease in the world of any country. That means neurological diseases, autoimmune diseases, allergic diseases like peanut allergies, food allergies, eczema, anaphylaxis, asthma, and we pay more than anybody else. We also consume more pharmaceutical products. I think we take 3 to 4 times as many drugs per capita than Europeans do, and they're not making.
Why don't people have criticisms of that? I have criticism of Big Pharma. I called out the fact that they over-medicate antidepressant pills. And I remember the blowback I got on Twitter when I said that, like people, like as if I was directly calling you out particularly. If anyone believed that America is a properly diagnosed country when it comes to depression, you are out of your fucking mind. Anyway, I want to get to the anti-vax debate. That's a whole nother discussion. Our society is rotten. People are unfulfilled. People are working to death. People do not have any chance to pursue happiness because they're working all the time. And then the health industry says that our depression problem is because people's brains are broken. That is a ridiculous theory. That's a ridiculous theory. Your brain is broken because of our system. I am not saying that something is not wrong with you, but people are pretending that, oh my God, everyone in America have uniquely broken brains. Why is the happiness meter, why are there less depression in countries that are poorer than us? Why are we medicated 20 times more than other countries? Are you telling me that Americans are, there's something that happens when you live in North American soil that makes your brain breaks at 20 times more than Europe? There's so many people, the same way that there are vaccine cultists, there are people who are depression pill cultists. And I didn't even realize that until recently when I started questioning this shit. And the people are like, oh my God, you say that my depression isn't real? No, I didn't say that, motherfucker. I am making an obvious critique on how people are being overprescribed depression pills instead of having another alternative put to their place. And the system don't want to do that because it's better to just drug you up. It's better to say your brain is broken. You shut the fuck up. Something's wrong with you. So let's give us your pills to get back to work, motherfucker. That's what they tell us. I don't buy it, man. I don't buy that at all. So let's get to the vaccine debate. And another big part of this was Siger and Krystal Ball talking about nuclear energy, and this is something that they disagree with as well on RFK. And this showed that the purpose of them bringing RFK on was to highlight differences, was to attack and to debate. Because when Krystal talked to Marianne Williamson, I don't remember them having a big giant debate over nuclear energy, but he did when RFK is on. I didn't see Marianne Williamson grilled over her anti-vax takes, but RFK was. Now I'll play the part
that exposed Krystal Ball as a big pharma shill. What got her own audience calling her out, because this is the big vaccine COVID debate. And after this the quote unquote debate that Krystal Ball had with RFK, after this interview, I don't ever want to hear a Marianne Williamson fan ever complain about my interview ever again. Because I interrupted Marianne Williamson after allowing her to go on 90 seconds, 2 minutes. Like, she'll go on 90 seconds long diatribes 2 minutes in without answering my questions. And I'm like, man, no. No, you need to answer my fucking question. So Marianne Williamson fans got mad at me for doing that because I held her feet to the fire. Marianne Williamson got upset with me because I held her foot to the fire and I demanded her to answer my questions. Here, Krystal Ball just interrupts this motherfucker without ever allowing him to speak. I gave Marianne Williamson plenty of time to speak, but I was rude. But this is how you conduct an interview? I never want to hear people complain about how I handled Marianne Williamson after this nonsense. Because, as I said before, I am pro interrupting a politician. And I will interrupt a politician the second they won't answer my question. But Krystal will ask him a question. He started answering, and then she didn't like his answer, so she immediately started cutting him off. So let's. This is a debate. I'll let Lavi play because there's a lot to say here.
Okay. So let me ask you about vaccines. This is an area where you and I have significant differences, and just to level with you on this, like a lot of what you say, I really respond to. I think you're a very genuine person. But the across the board, whether you want to call it vaccine skepticism or anti-vax advocacy, which has been a central part of what you've been up to for the past number of years, for me personally, it's an issue, and it's a real sort of red line. And I know.
Hold up. Krystal Ball. So someone's opinions on science and not agreeing with you on a particular science like vaccines, that's a red line. That's where you draw the line in the sand. But you are supporting Marianne Williamson, who is arming Nazis in Ukraine. You like Bernie Sanders, who's arming Nazis in Ukraine. Bernie Sanders, who is pro-war. This is what I do not understand about the professional managerial class. I don't understand their values. I legitimately don't understand your values. So someone having a different opinion over vaccines is a bigger deal than someone funding Nazis in Ukraine? Can someone explain that to me? I used to believe in body autonomy. Well, I still do believe in body autonomy, I should say. If someone chooses not to get the vaccine, or if someone just inherently don't trust the vaccine, what the fuck does that have to do with you? That had nothing to do with you. Nothing at all. But someone supporting war, someone supporting the military-industrial complex, I think that has something to do with all of us. So how do they draw these random lines in the sand? And I've been asking this question ever since we started RBN. So they will never vote for a Republican because a Republican is anti-abortion, but they vote for Jim Crow Joe who wrote the crime bill? So why they will never vote for a Republican who's anti-gay, but they'll vote for Joe Biden, a segregationist, one of the most anti-black politicians of all time? I do not understand their values. Okay? So if someone's anti-gay, that's a red line. Someone anti-black, not a red line? You gotta see how I'm confused with Democrats and progressives? And that's coming back to what Krystal Ball says. Marianne Williamson had horrific takes on Afghanistan. Marianne Williamson is a Zionist. And she's horrible on the Ukraine war. Those are not red lines for Krystal Ball. And ask yourself why. Class trumps all. She will never cross the military-industrial complex. She'll never draw a red line at that. But she will draw a red line on some big pharma worshiping bullshit. It's no matter where you fall in the COVID vaccine debate, can we all acknowledge that? That it's ridiculous to have someone's opinion on vaccine as a red line, but you're okay with their pro-war positions? That is ridiculous. And I will continue to call out this inconsistency that I see. So I want you guys to hear that part again, because I want you guys to see her concerns.
So let me ask you about vaccines. This is an area where you and I have significant differences. And, you know, just to level with you on this, like a lot of what you say, I really respond to. I think you're a very genuine person, but the across the board, whether you want to call it vaccine skepticism or anti-vax advocacy, which has been a central part of what you've been up to for the past number of years. For me personally, it's an issue, and it's a real sort of red line. And I know I'm not alone in that, especially running in a Democratic primary. There are going to be other millions of people.
And I'm gonna let the video play, but you guys know how many Marianne Williamson fans, and I'm making this point because they go after me. Like Marianne Williamson fans on Twitter, you see their comments on YouTube every once in a while. They will go after us because they believe we are too hard on Marianne Williamson because she supports arming Nazis in Ukraine. But oh my God, you're paying on vaccines. This is a hard line. Fuck out of here.
Like me who have similar concerns. So how do you win them over? What's your message to people who think like I do?
Well, but just tell me where you think I got it wrong.
Well, I think you get it wrong when you draw a correlation between the rise of things like autism and the introduction of vaccines when there isn't hard scientific evidence tying those things together.
How do you know? Let me ask you this. How do you know there's not a hard scientific evidence?
Well, because the one major study that purported to show that was retracted, and the scientist who conducted it was,
Now, what you're doing now,
basically
Krystal,
fraudulently created. Listen,
no.
Hold on.
You're
But
raising this issue.
I don't want to get in a debate with you about this because you've spent your life.
What a fucking cop-out. What a cop-out. So you say he's wrong, then RFK starts to dismantle your argument, and then all of a sudden you don't want to do a debate? I thought you asked him a question. Can you guys imagine the reaction if I did this to Marianne Williamson? Imagine if I asked Marianne Williamson about the two-state solution, and then Marianne Williamson explains why she supports the two-state solution, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to get bogged down by the details. Can you guys imagine if I did that? You guys want to know what I did instead? Marianne Williamson gave me a bullshit answer on the two-state solution, so I explained to her why the two-state solution, supporting that is completely wrong in a red line, because we see the result of the two-state solution. So supporting the two-state solution is saying you support the status quo. I explained this to Marianne Williamson, and you want to know her response to me? She called me a mansplainer. She said, "Oh, Nick, you're mansplaining to me." Did RFK accuse Krystal Ball of being rude? No. Even though Krystal Ball was being way ruder than I was to Marianne Williamson. Marianne Williamson was also on Fox News, where this host interrupted her way more times than I did, but she was just laughing it up with her class friend. So, are you going to let him answer the question? And if you didn't want to debate him on this issue, why are you sharing your thoughts? Because I'm all for debating people I interview. That's why I share my thoughts with Marianne Williamson. If you don't want to debate the issue, don't share your thoughts, ask the question, and move the fuck on. It's that fucking simple. You're doing this because you're trying to help your friend Marianne Williamson out because she's getting destroyed by this guy RFK in the polls. Pathetic.
Pulling out this study now. I will tell you. Let me just tell you.
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds.
Let me just tell you.
I'm not.
I've listened to hours of interviews with you with an open mind, and I'm not persuaded. Now, maybe I'm wrong. That's possible. I'll hold it out there. People can watch. I thought Megyn Kelly did a phenomenal interview with you that went through all these
Why
things.
are you still talking? You said I'm not persuaded by you, so shut the fuck up. Let him talk and see if he will persuade you. Why are you bringing up old interviews and old things he said when you got him right in front of you? That's why I didn't bring up old shit Marianne Williamson said when I interviewed her. When I asked her about the two-state solution, I didn't bring up her old quotes. I just asked her, point up, do you support the two-state solution? And I allow her to explain and hang herself. What Krystal is doing is unbelievably desperate.
By piece, I really encourage people to watch that whole exchange because we won't be able to do it justice here in the 5 minutes we have left.
What?
But there are going to be people.
You are on YouTube, ma'am. So you start this debate with RFK, you realize you're quickly out of your depth, and now all of a sudden you want to pretend you got a commercial break coming up? That's a surrender. How do you ask him a question, but you end up talking more to him during the course of his answer?
People like me who aren't persuaded and who see this as an issue, and the fact that it's been such a central part of your advocacy means I can't just sort of put it to the side and say, oh, well, I'll just ignore, this piece that's been really important to you in your life. So you're running in a Democratic primary. You have a lot of people who feel even more strongly than me, who think that, Dr. Fauci is a hero and all of these things. How are you going to persuade them? How are you going to reach them? And what is your message to them?
So I remember when Marianne Williamson was on Krystal and Kyle, and Krystal and Kyle asked Marianne Williamson a question. They said, do you believe that you can defeat Joe Biden? And Marianne Williamson said yes. And they just sit there like, she thinks she can win, guys. She thinks she can win. No pushback. No, not saying that, man, Marianne Williamson, I don't know if the Democratic Party electorate would like you for this. I don't think they would like you for this. I don't think they would like you for this. But when she had RFK on, someone who's polling way better than your friend Marianne Williamson, you're like, man, RFK, I talked to a lot of Democrats. I don't think you stand a chance. Can you tell me why you're going to win? It's so, like, this kind of journalism is so biased. It's so ridiculous that these people pretend they're independent. I'll let it play for a bit.
First of all, I'm not leading with, my opinions about vaccines. What I say to people is, show me where I got it wrong. Show me where I got my science wrong. I've written books about this. I wrote a book about the link between thimerosal and autism that has, I think, 450 distilled scientific studies that confirm and validate that hypothesis, and 1,400 references. And if I got something wrong, show me where it is.
But I think people have shown you where things are wrong, but you don't want to hear it. Is because I've seen, numerous
people said you was wrong. Random people, I'm not going to quote them. People said you was wrong. I can't say you're wrong, but I'm going to just say people say you're wrong, so my audience will get the opinion that you're lying. Are you going to give any examples, Krystal? Any at all? Don't worry, I'll wait.
Fact checks Dr. Vinay Prasad, who we, really respect on the COVID vaccine. He went through your interview with All In. He did a fact check. I mean,
his fact check has already been thoroughly debunked, by the way.
It's not.
And I did a fact check of Vinay, and you should read that.
I will take a look at it, but I don't think that it's fair to say nobody has ever pointed out anything that's been wrong.
Well,
who cares if people point out? You're the interviewee. You're interviewing him. I'll just say. You should ask him questions, especially since you disagree with him, and be very specific on what he's getting wrong, but you are not able to do that.
People complain about what I say. And I'm not leading on this issue, so people can either take it or leave it. But if you want to, what you just said about me, that I'm sort of hard-headed and stubborn and just won't give in, you're wrong about that. If somebody shows me where I'm wrong, I'm going to correct it. And, we have probably the most robust fact-checking operation now in North America. I have 350 PhD scientists and MD physicians on, CHD's advisory board, including until recently, Luc Montagnier won the Nobel Prize for discovering the HIV virus. Chris Portier, who's the head of the National Toxicity Program at NIH, formerly, probably the top toxicologist in America. And if I were saying things that were scientifically unsound, those people would not stay with us. What I would say to you is, show me where I got it wrong. Show me a study where I got wrong, and I will change my position. Science is fluid. It's not an embarrassment to me if there's a new scientific study that I haven't seen that comes out and says I'm wrong. That's what you're supposed to do with science. But what I'm saying to you, nobody has done that. If Vinay Prasad, when he did his piece, if he showed me science that was valid, I would say I would change my position.
If we got the two of you together,
read my
response to him.
So you say this isn't what you're leading with, but I just have to say, as someone who, is watching your candidacy closely and is aware of the advocacy you've been doing and, the organization that you are involved with, it's hard for me to believe this won't be an important part of how you govern. So
Get the fuck out of here. So I watched your interview with Marianne Williamson. Once again, this shows your biases. Now, I'm not saying that's not a good question, but Marianne Williamson supports arming Nazis in Ukraine. So why didn't you ask her about that and say, oh man, I think your judgment, you want to fund NATO, you're wanting to fund the violent Azov battalion, wouldn't that affect the way you govern? Why don't they ask Marianne Williamson that question? Because that's a no-go for me. That's a non-starter. That's a non-starter. So if Marianne Williamson or any progressive, if your judgment is so bad that you are okay with funding Biden's proxy war that has completely destabilized geopolitics and the quality of life for millions of people around the world, if your judgment is that bad, where you fall for the Ukraine war hoax like Marianne Williamson, why should I trust you to govern on anything else? You notice they never asked Marianne Williamson those questions, but she asked RFK those questions. Now, I am okay with grilling RFK. I am not okay with inconsistencies. Weaponized hypocrisies and weaponized inconsistencies is a form of corruption.
So I think that's the most important piece for people to get, who you have to accept there are going to be people like me who just don't agree with you on this. You certainly understand that there are many who do.
Why are you making this interview about you? When I clicked this interview, I was like, man, I want to see what RFK say. I didn't click this interview like, man, wonder if Krystal is okay with RFK's opinion.
That the vaccines that we have are more beneficial than harmful, that, got their kids vaccinated and are happy for that decision. So how is this going to impact the way that you govern, or does it not at all?
I mean, I'm going to govern according to, what evidence-based medicine. That's
So
the way.
let me give a specific question. If there's another pandemic, in the last pandemic, former President Trump, something we gave him a lot of credit for, he launched Operation Warp Speed. They had a whole of government approach. They used the mRNA technology that was developed using, U.S. taxpayer dollars to get a vaccine out to the population as quickly as possible. How would your approach have differed?
My approach would have been a science-based approach.
Which means what?
Which means and a medicine-based approach, the approach that has been used for,
I'll let it play all the way through at this point.
You look first at therapeutics that are off the shelf, and you look at the efficacy of those. I mean, what I would have done if I was in power then, I would have created an information grid, because now we have this internet that is supposed to benefit us and has become instead an instrument for, totalitarian control. But let's use it for something good. Let's link all 15 million scientists, doctors, frontline physicians all over the world, and find out what they're doing to treat this new respiratory virus, and find out what they're saying is working and not working, and then test that with science, and then turn it instantaneously into protocols and recommendations for other scientists.
So would a vaccine development be part of that or not?
Well, I don't think the vaccine worked. I think, if you think it worked, then try to explain to me the countries that were unvaccinated did much better than our.
Many of those countries, because there are a lot of different factors in various countries. So a lot of those countries, as you pointed out before,
why do we have the highest death rate count in the world by far?
See, after this shit, I never want to hear a Marianne Williamson fan ever complain about my interview with her. I interrupted her way less than this. Way less. I let Marianne Williamson go on a long bullshit spiel before I interrupted her, because all right, she's wasting our time. She won't stop. So I wonder if the same people who had criticism of me in how I interview Marianne will keep that same interview for Krystal. And like many people say, I'm not gonna pump. A lot of people say I was polite. I was very nice to Marianne Williamson, but she crumbled because my question was so pointed and my question exposed her. Never I want to hear a Marianne Williamson fan ever complain about my interview again after this, ever again.
I think there are a lot of factors that may go into that. One of them is the fact that we are disproportionately obese as a society. We have the negative health outcomes that you've been talking about. We don't go outside as much as countries, say in Africa. I mean, there are a lot of different factors that may play into that. But I will say Did the vaccines work in the way they were initially promised to prevent spread? No, I don't think so, especially once you got to later variants. But we have a lot of data that shows that in terms of reducing severe hospitalization and death.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was an RFK interview. I didn't know this was a radar. I didn't know this was a radar with Krystal Ball, gonna lecture us about vaccines. I thought it was an interview. Oh no, my bad, I guess.
The vaccines were really important, and maybe there was a cost-benefit analysis.
I want to see that data. I know that's what the industry says.
There is lots of data, and not just from here, from around the world, that shows the vaccine doses, and not just our vaccines.
And also, I hate this talking point because people always say this. People say, "Well, America is uniquely different because America struggles with obesity." You guys know, even though America is the second fattest country next to Mexico, that obesity rates are sky high in Europe too. Like, and when you look at Europe, they struggling with obesity too. Not as much as America, but it's a Western problem. Like, it's not just an American problem. Like, you guys think everyone's skinny in Europe? It's a global phenomenon of obesity. America is just uniquely bad. So this thing where they pretending that other countries are not fat is not true. It's so stupid to say that.
That were created all around the world reduce severe hospitalization and death. So in that way, yes, I do very much believe that they will.
And let me tell you something. What I believe you're doing now is you're parroting what the public health agencies have been saying, but they do not have a scientific basis for that. And I have another book out that you should look at called Died Suddenly, that goes through all the Johns Hopkins data, which is the dashboard data that everybody used, and shows exactly what happened when first of all, the vaccine, the Case Western study that is probably the largest, most recent, shows that at most the vaccine gives you a very, very small amount of protection, and that after 7 months, you go into negative efficacy. So you are more, if you got vaccinated, you're more likely to get sick, you're more likely to get severe illness, and you're more likely to die than if you were unvaccinated.
I have not seen that. I have seen study after study that shows the opposite. Listen, I don't want to get bogged down in this because I don't think we're going to see.
I don't want to get bogged down in this because she just now realized she's getting dismantled.
I hear, and we have some other questions we want to get to, and your time is short. But we'll put in post, please send us what you're looking at.
Yeah, we're happy.
We'll put what I'm looking at, and people can judge for themselves.
Sagar is like, man, I'm so fucking tired of her. So, funding war in Ukraine, not a red line for Krystal Ball. Okay. So I am sure you're consistent in your red line in vaccine hesitancy, right? I'm sure you are. I can't believe that Marianne Williamson supporters are really doing this. I make fun of people in American political discourse all the time because the memory of most people who follow politics is that of a goldfish. Marianne Williamson supporters, do you guys remember what they used to say about her? Do you guys remember what they used to say about Marianne Williamson? They called her an anti-vax crank. You want to know why? I want to see if Krystal Ball is as upset about this as she was with RFK. These are things that a lot of Marianne Williamson supporters, they try to forget. Once again, I don't give a shit about your opinions over vaccines. But this is Marianne Williamson. As president, I will order the Centers for Disease Control to establish an independent commission to review/reform vaccine safety. This is Marianne Williamson saying that vaccines are unsafe because she wanted to create a commission to review them. Marianne Williamson then says, calling people who express any concerns or questioning about bundling the number of vaccines, neurotoxins, and so forth as an anti-vax is both incorrect and unfair. This is your candidate. This is Marianne Williamson saying that there's nothing wrong with questioning vaccines, questioning their safety. Then Marianne Williamson decided she wanted to be a Democrat grifter. So at the tender age of 70, she decided to change all her positions on this. The tender age of 70, she had a revelation over vaccines.
because she wanted to fit into the boutique left Democratic Party. And then she goes on to say, given that as of 2019, over $4 billion has been paid out in compensation for vaccine injury, concerned parents should not be demonized nor their concerns minimized, like Krystal tried to do to RFK. So I want you people to be consistent for one goddamn second. So according to Krystal Ball, RFK questioning the vaccines is a red line. Meanwhile, Marianne Williamson don't give a fuck about it. Why didn't Krystal Ball ask Marianne Williamson this question when she was on Krystal and Cal? She didn't, because maybe she wouldn't have officiated their wedding if they did. Meanwhile, people were trying to pretend that they didn't understand RBN's criticism of access journalism. This is access journalism. You grill RFK over vaccines, but you don't grill Marianne Williamson, who had she literally saying that vaccines can make people sick, and there shouldn't be anything wrong with us being concerned about that. That's the red line, according to the boutique left. And the funny thing is, I raised the same concern, which is why I see this classist double standard. Among the boutique left, if you're among the good class, you can say whatever you want. I said the same thing Marianne Williamson just said there, because I know friends, multiple. Few of them have been very vocal on Twitter about their vaccine injuries that I know, right? I have a friend who lost their business because their vaccine injury was so bad that they couldn't work. And since he owned their business, he couldn't work. He lost his business. I know some shit, guys. I know people who have suffered. I'll just say that. So I said in a tweet I sent last year, talking to a friend whose life been ruined because they was injured by the vaccine, but they are too intimidated to even speak on it. And obviously I'm not going to say their name, but I was talking to this guy like, man, and they would tell me they felt bullied. Anytime someone bring up their vaccine injury, they will immediately get bullied, right? So I was like, fuck that. I don't give a fuck what people say, so I brought it up. And I said that Big Pharma should be paying everyone injured by their jabs reparations, full stop. Big Pharma was making $1,000 per second during the COVID pandemic. So as an anti-capitalist, as a Marxist, I was like, how about we seize that production, seize the profits that they made? Okay, you benefited from this pandemic. You should not be able to. So anyone who was injured because they was a good citizen and took the vaccine, you guys should pay them from your profits. Which I was like, man, that's a tame ass take. Not even anti-vax in any sense of the word. I have 111 quote tweets, and I remember this at the time. Look at this ratio. I got a lot of likes on this tweet. I'm at 1,900 likes, but 300 responses. Some of them are supportive, but maybe 100 of them are progressives and liberals who got upset at me because I had the audacity to say that Big Pharma should pay vaccine injured people. So you have progressives and liberals who was protecting the honor of Big Pharma profit. And I was viciously attacked by the boutique left. I'm not going to go through all the attacks. I got many people blocking me. You see, I was going to war with a lot of these people. I'm going to just read some of the replies so you see what I was dealing with. Look, this is just a thought. The sociopathic responses in here are exactly why your friend and so many are scared to speak on it. So she's talking about the responses I got in the tweet because I don't have time to read them all to you guys. Right? But people, my followers, like, holy shit, the progressive vaccine cult is melting down at you over this. And they was, because I said that Big Pharma should pay vaccine injured people. Here's Rome, our brother. Rome says, look at how these people are jumping on Nick, proving his point on why his friend doesn't want to come out. because I was speaking up for my friend, and people was like, "How dare you speak up for your friend who was vaccine injured? How dare you say that Big Pharma should pay them?" Don't got time to go through all of them. But I noticed the same boutique progressives who went after me for saying people should be compensated for vaccine injury. Where was they when Marianne Williamson was saying the same fucking thing? They had no problem with Marianne Williamson saying it. It's one big club, and you're not in it. It's weaponized hypocrisy, and this access journalism, and people covering their friends. That is clouding their judgment, and that is making them be inconsistent. It's making them be so anti-intellectual and such hypocrites that I can jump on stream randomly and easily dismantle all your points. Every single one of them. So there's some super chats I want to get to. We still have a few stories I want to cover. The next story I'm going to cover is Zelensky, who the liberal media have been pretending is a champion of democracy, this hero leader. But now Western media outlets like the Washington Post and MSNBC and pretty much Western people in general are starting to realize how fucking unhinged Zelensky is. Washington Post did an interview with Zelensky, and they had to edit a part of the interview out where Zelensky accused Washington Post of working for Putin in Russia because they asked him a semi-tough question. So we get to that here very soon. The same Zelensky that people like Marianne Williamson 100% support. So I'm going to get to some super chats before I get to the next story. Zoya is love. Zoya is life. I see you, my friend, in there. I'm going to try to get to some chats before I get to the next story. We have almost 700 people watching. If we can get another 100, 150 likes, that will help boost the visibility of our stream. You guys know that RBN is deeply suppressed in some of the most vicious, unapologetic ways ever, to the point where the only way people find our channel is when people type out revolutionary blackout. That's the only way you guys find our channel, and subscribe to our channel. So liking, subscribing, and all that stuff really does help us. So if you enjoy this commentary, want to help real independent, non-access journalists get ahead, supporting us is the way to do that. Thank you for the $10, Terry. Keep up the great I'm sure great work, RBN. Thank you for the super chat. Terry, this is from JX. Thank you for the $5. As long as people who buy private plans aren't allowed to pay less taxes, then who cares? We need clarification on RFK position. Yeah, we absolutely need clarification on that. Yeah, that's the point. Like, I don't like. There's no problem with cosmetic surgery. We can't have people outside the pool. You can't have people outside the healthcare pool. Like, you can't have people who have better cancer coverage than the rest of us, because that creates a sick pool. It creates a poor pool, right? Which actually drives up costs and it increased wait times. So there have been studies that show that single payer healthcare saves money over our anarchic system because of this mechanism, right? But thank you for that super chat. Thank you for the $20, Jen. I think Marianne is a longtime natural health medicine advocate. I doubt she got the jab. Has anyone asked her about it? Someone need to ask her. Her functional med doc probably advised her not to. Krystal should ask her that pointed question and what her stances is on vaccines. She wouldn't dare ask her good friend that question, because, you know, she asked her that question, she would never turn up to the wedding. It's just that simple. Thanks for the $5. Solidarity super sticker, my friend Fenuela. Thanks for the $5, Jonathan. So happy she did what she did. Now more people can see the BS she is. Peace. Much love to you as well, Jonathan. Thanks for the $20, Steven. This is why we need to build indie media. Thanks for everything you do, Nick. Best wishes. We explained many times on RBN. We decided to create an R-Black anti-capitalist network because we was watching people like Krystal Ball. We were watching people like Kyle Kulinski. We were watching people like David Pakman, Jane Huger, Anna Kasparian, all these white liberal fucks say they are on the left. Meanwhile, every time we watch shit, like, what the fuck are they talking about? They are not the left. They're not independent. So we decided to put our money where our mouth is. And I think after you guys seen our content for the last 2 years, like comparing the TYT left, the Krystal and Kyle left to us is a joke, and everyone knows it. We demonstrated the difference between a black Marxist and a black leftist compared to the PMC progressive fucks. The PMC progressives, they used to think they were fighting for us. They agree with us on most issues. After RBN, it is 100% clear that they do not. 100% clear, which I'm glad most people understand now. These people do not speak for us. For a long time, these white progressive saviors believe they can talk for black Marxists and black socialists. On YouTube, for a very long time, the farthest left you would get is a social democrat, because everyone was afraid to call themselves a Marxist and a communist because they was afraid to lose subs. We make the argument on why they don't go far enough, and we do it all the time. Look at my theory of change. Their theory of change is based on sock dem, capitalist apologia and bullshit. Where we talking about organizing mutual aid, building community, right? How many channels were talking about mutual aid before RBN came up? Not a goddamn one, because the left YouTube have been ran by sock dem capitalist motherfuckers for years, and they left the left off the cliff. So yeah, thanks for the $5. Philosophical thirst worms. That's a powerful ass name. Saiger is Miles, more professional. You see him pushing for proper Vinay RFK debate like a journalist is supposed to do. Absolutely. I still want to see the debate between Marianne Williamson and RFK. I think if RFK debate Marianne Williamson campaign would end that fucking day. It's already over, but it'll be anyone who support her after that will lose all credibility. Can you imagine Marianne Williamson ditzy ass trying to debate RFK on Ukraine? She will accuse RFK of repeating Putin talking points. If you're not on Twitter, that's what Marianne Williamson does all the time. Whenever anyone call her out for supporting the Ukraine war, she said, "I don't fall for Putin's talking points." Here it is. Here's the tweet that got her Rachel to death. And this shit is a hard no for me, man. Hard no. Our boy Garland Nixon called her out for her take on Ukraine. And Garland said, "You seem genuine enough. However, RFK sees through the neocon lies about Ukraine and you don't. I'm going with him." So her response was, Putin's talking points are no better than neocon lies. I see through both. And you notice, as they never do, as I said, which Putin talking points do you think are inaccurate? And I promise you, I guarantee you, Marianne Williamson cannot answer that question. What Putin talking points have you heard, Marianne? And I want you to spell it out in great detail. It's incorrect. So, can you imagine her debating on RFK, seeing how she approached this issue? Can you imagine RFK and Marianne debating foreign policy would not go well for them, right? Actually, I don't know if that was the Saiger. Let me get to a few more. Then we got another story after this, so stay tuned, guys. G the Black, our much beloved comrade. I appreciate the solidarity, $5. Double check if you like the video. Liking and all this stuff, liking the video and all that stuff help us beat the algorithm. So we appreciate it, guys. There's another story I want to get to. I want to cover Western media slowly coming to the realization that Zelensky is a maniac. Look at this. So this is what we've been warning for people for quite some time. MSNBC in this article is starting to sound the alarm about how fucking crazy Zelensky is. And they're like, man, I don't know, we should be just giving him every weapon that he wants. So look at this article. Zelensky has a bigger and more alarming appetite for risk than we thought. The subheadline says Zelensky has proposed risky plans that could trigger a United States-Russian war. Marianne Williamson and Bernie Sanders don't give a fuck about that. But tell me more about how those are small disagreements. So what this article is saying is that meant we could have never seen it coming, that Zelensky is an unhinged maniac that want to start World War III. What have we been telling you guys about Zelensky since the start of the Ukraine war? Now I'm going to read the first two paragraphs, and we are starting to see a shift in the conversation regarding Ukraine. There's rumors that there's more people that in the West that want to call for peace. Biden in the West is waiting to see how the Ukrainian offensive go, and if the Ukrainian offensive is a failure, like all the offensives have been a failure, they're gonna pull the plug on this. That's the rumor. They wait until around July and August, and if they don't make gains, they won't be able to justify this war, and they're gonna pull the plug. So it's because of this I am starting to see more mainstream questioning of Zelensky, like I've never seen before. More mainstream questioning of the Ukrainian narrative, because the United States is getting, in the West, according to leaks and rumors, are getting closer and closer to pulling the plug on this disaster. Now let's get into the story. The Washington Post reported some big news this week. And now remember the Washington Post, because we're going to get to them here soon. The Washington Post reported big news this weekend. Classified United States intelligence documents leaked last month show that Ukrainian President Zelensky proposed to top Ukrainian officials. He proposed to top Ukrainian officials to attack Russia within its borders. He also floated the idea of blowing up an oil pipeline to Hungary, a member of NATO. Why would Zelensky say this stuff? You guys bombed the Nord Stream pipeline. You guys enabled him this far. I covered this war from the beginning. Zelensky has been calling for attacking Russia. When you attack Crimea, you're attacking Russia as well. So they are just now pretending that he's saying this stuff, but he's been saying this stuff last year. They are now reporting on it because there's rumors that after the failed Ukrainian offensive, they're going to pull the plug. So now you're going to start seeing more criticism of him. So you had Zelensky, this unhinged terrorist, that floated bombing a pipeline to a NATO member. Once again, this is the person that Bernie Sanders and Marianne Williamson do not give a fuck that we're funding. This eco-terrorist. You want to attack a NATO member because they're not cutting off Russian gas enough. So MSNBC says this is hugely disturbing news. God damn. Imagine how much Zelensky... I would never thought MSNBC was going to say that. Ever. You know, do you guys understand how crazy and unhinged Zelensky has to be for them to start saying this shit? They can't hide it anymore. Other countries see it. They can propagandize the American people as much as they want. But everyone, China, Russia, India, Brazil, Lula, all these people are like, you guys see how fucking crazy Zelensky is? So how long can Western media cover it up? I see Duan, friend of the show. Bernie and Marianne may be as insane as Zelensky. I don't know if you guys saw the Marianne Williamson interview with Glenn Greenwald. She's very concerned about the Chinese Communist Party. Keeps her up at night. Now look at this part. Unbelievable. Unbelievable that they actually say this. They say this is hugely disturbing. Actually, I'll read the other part again. Zelensky proposed to top Ukrainian officials that Ukraine attacked Russia within its borders. He also floated the idea to blow up a pipeline in Hungary, a NATO member. This is hugely disturbing news. The report underscores the tremendous risk of endlessly arming Zelensky with an increasingly powerful array of weapons. So MSNBC is literally about 14 months later than RBN, 14 months later than all our allies and friends who shared our same position on Ukraine? This is exactly what we've been saying. This is exactly the concern that we floated to the NATO left that they don't give a fuck about. They do care about your vaccine opinion, though. Your vaccine opinion means everything. But you supporting arming this psychopath named Zelensky? Come on, man. We agree on 95% of things. There be vaccines, though. If Zelensky were to lead an offensive operation in Russia while armed with weapons from NATO, there's a good chance Russia would interpret that as a U.S.-backed action. That, in turn, can trigger a direct military confrontation between Russia and the United States and a heightened chance of catastrophic nuclear exchange. Now, I want to tell you guys something that the media will never tell you. Right now, as it is, Russia could easily say they are at war with the United States right now. Easily. There's been UK, United States intelligence officers in Ukraine. And I will make the argument of how is the United States leading the charge to arm Ukraine not an act of war. It 100% is an act of war. Are you kidding me? Can you decolonize your mind? The United States arming Ukraine against Russia is an act of war because they took their side in the Civil War in 2014 and 15. So I want you guys to understand, Russia has shown incredible restraint. Russia could easily use the economic war that has been waged against them and the fact that the United States and UK sending weapons to Ukraine as an act of war, and they could have plunged to nuclear war last year. The same way that China easily could have plunged us into a nuclear war because of the United States encroaching on Taiwan. But like always, it's up to Russia, it's up to China, and it's up to Iran to be the grown-ups in the room and to prevent nuclear war. So what this article is saying that if Zelensky actually does attack Russia, that would cause Russia to view us as part of the war. But the fact that they don't is them trying to spare the world. They're sparing the global working class because a massive all-out war between Russia and their allies in the West will destroy the global working class and arguably humanity because of nuclear catastrophe, right? So I want you guys to know Russia had restraint here. It's yet another sign that showing restraint when it comes to assisting Ukraine against Russian invasion isn't weakness, but wisdom. There's nothing wise about having 300,000 Ukrainians die because you want to weaken Russia and have them win an unwinnable war. Nothing wise about that. But I am glad they said it. I am 100% glad they said it. So this is actually a very rare critique of Zelensky that comes from MSNBC. I cannot emphasize that enough. So you have, as explained, the Washington Post obtained intelligence documents that expose how unhinged the Ukrainian government and Zelensky is. So you had this interview where Washington Post interviewed Zelensky, and Zelensky came across as so unhinged that Washington Post deleted an entire portion of the interview. They deleted that portion of the interview where Zelensky accuses them of being a Russian puppet. You cannot make this shit up. According to Zelensky, the Washington fucking Post is pro-Russia now because the Washington Post had the audacity to bring up these leaks that makes him look as unhinged as he is. So the subheadline says, the Ukrainian leader was angry about information revealed by a leaked document, saying sharing such info in Ukraine was a felony. That's the freedom-fighting, democracy-loving Ukrainians for you, where doing journalism is a felony. Reporting on government leaks is the most legit act of journalism that you can do. You guys know that? The most legitimate act of journalism is you breaking a story that came from leaks. That is what got Julian Assange in trouble. Julian Assange, an amazing journalist, won multiple journalistic awards, right? Exposed U.S. war crimes because of leaks he got. So the United States illegally imprisoned him and tortured him, even though he's an Australian citizen. And you see where Zelensky in Ukraine is learning from? Zelensky in Ukraine saw what the United States did to Julian Assange and was like, okay, any motherfucker sharing this in Ukraine will get a felony. And I promise you guys, they're probably going to be tortured and killed by the Azov Battalion like they did many of their political enemies over the last 7 to 8 years. This is another example how Ukraine is not for the free press in an extremely fascistic nation. So what happened to make Zelensky accuse the paper of aiding Russia? I'll start from here. Actually, no, I'll just read it. Fuck it. The Washington Post deleted a portion of an interview with Zelensky, where he accused the paper of helping Russia by posing a question about information contained in leaked classified documents. So if you ask Zelensky a question, you're helping Russia. If you question the Ukraine narrative, you're falling for Putin talking points, as Marianne Williamson would say, right? The interview was conducted on May 1st and published on Saturday. An archived version of the interview shows a testy exchange between Zelensky and the Post, which was later deleted. Why would they delete it? If you think the Washington Post is actually unbiased journalism, well, I know none of you guys actually do, but why would they delete it? I thought democracy died in darkness, Washington Post. Democracy dies in darkness. So we're going to delete what Zelensky said so you guys don't know how unhinged he actually is. So the Post asked Zelensky about documents they obtained that show members of Ukraine main directorate of intelligence, known as the HUR, had a back channel contact with Evgeny. I don't know if that's his Russian name. But they had a back channel contact with the head of the Russian mercenary group, the Wagner Group. So they asked him this question about this back in a channel that the HUR have with the Wagner Group. So then Zelensky responds. That's a very basic question, right? Zelensky appeared to think the Post received the information from an Ukrainian and demanded the paper reveal its source. You guys see what that says? So Zelensky said, I would also like to ask you a question. With which sources from Ukraine do you have contact? Now, why do you guys think Zelensky want Washington Post to burn their source, where they got their information? Because Zelensky want to go back to Ukraine like, nigga, kill that motherfucker. Find who said that shit and kidnap and torture him and kill them the way we've been doing it to Eastern Ukrainians for the last 8 years. Zelensky showing his fascism here. He thought he was in Ukraine for a moment, where he consolidated all media in his country, banned opposition parties. He demanded the paper reveal its source. I will also like to ask you a question. With which sources from Ukraine do you have contact? Who is talking about the activities of our intelligence? Because this is the most severe felony in our country. Which Ukrainians are you talking to? He's just saying it. Zelensky, that's why they deleted the interview, because Zelensky like, who told you this? Who's doing journalism in my country? You tell me so we can track them down and torture and kill them. So the Post said the information did not come from Ukraine, and that was part of the Discord leaks, right? And then after bring that up, I'm trying to get to the quote. Here it is. I'm gonna skip the first two paragraphs because they get to the question they ask him about the back channel, right? So this is Zelensky's response. Zelensky responded by asking if the paper wanted to help Russia. You're releasing some sort of information that does not help our state to attack and does not help us defend our state. So I don't quite understand. What are you talking about? I don't quite understand your goal. Is your goal to help Russia? And Zelensky came across as so unhinged, the Washington Post deleted it. Because here's Zelensky saying, how dare you do journalism whenever anyone looking to us, you are helping Russia. This is glorious. This is glorious. And Zelensky's unhinged positions on fighting Russia, bombing Russia, now he's banning opposition media outlets. That's why cracks are starting to form in the alliance. Wonder how long it's going to take Bernie Sanders to not be a coward. So I'm pulling this from Common Dreams. This was written by Medea Benjamin, but this came from the New York Times. I obviously, I don't pay for the New York Times. They'll never get sent. I don't give a fuck. Like, we will benefit from getting a New York Times subscription so I can do segments over their stupid bullshit. And there was a moment where I thought about it so I can break down the propaganda. But I was like, nah, no fucking way I will ever get the New York Times and Washington Post money. I don't give a fuck if I benefit from it. Because I think I would do a lot of good segments if I actually got a chance to read their bullshit. But I could never, ever, ever, ever. Like, it will kill me. It will kill my soul to know that I got paid for Washington Post and that money going to Jeff Bezos. I don't even shop at Amazon. I ain't bought anything at Amazon for like 8 years. I only bought one thing at Amazon my entire life. Like, I can't give money to Jeff Bezos. I know there's no ethnical consumption or capitalism, but hey, you can control what you can control. But anyway, let me get back to this. I'm pulling up the Common Dreams article because I don't have access to the New York Times. I remember someone offered to buy me a subscription so I can do breakdown. Like, no, I don't want anyone to give them money. So we can do summaries of what they say. So there was a full-page ad in the New York Times that was calling out the United States, and they were saying that we should give peace a chance. I know a lot of you guys have been paying attention since the start of this war. Have you guys ever heard anything like this when the war first started? The fact that this story is even written in the New York Times shows exactly how much the Ukraine and the West is in shambles. Everything they thought was going to happen, them winning an economic war with Russia, them rallying all our allies in support of our proxy war with Russia, has been an immense failure. Immense failure. So these are United States national security experts. These are not socialists. These are not anti-imperialists. These are people who believe in Western chauvinism. They believe that the United States is best for the world on top. But even they say, hey, how about we give peace a chance, man? This is only because this war has been a disaster, and they say it. So here's the subheadline. A full-page ad in the New York Times calls the war an unmitigated disaster and urges President Biden and Congress to help bring it to an end speedily through diplomacy. And despite how our corporate media meltdown and how the United States and the UK and the France meltdown about the Chinese peace agreement, the majority of the world supports the Chinese peace agreement, like Lula, like India, and many close U.S. allies, which is making this tension start arriving. And now the West realized they picked the losing side. What RBN been saying forever. So you have national security experts that are calling for peace in Ukraine. Why Marianne Williamson not? Bernie Sanders not. So let me get this straight. You had United States national security experts call for peace in Ukraine before Bernie Sanders? Before Marianne Williamson, the person who's trying to challenge Joe Biden? Are you fucking serious? We got to look across oceans. We got to listen to what Macron said. Where Macron said maybe we shouldn't be getting bogged down into a war with China. That was Macron who said that, not Bernie Sanders. Lula said that we need to advocate for peace following the Chinese model, not Bernie Sanders. As Dwayne said, my friend here, Bernie Sanders is sickening. There are people to his right, Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump is outflanking Bernie Sanders on peace. But there are people who they still refuse to say a bad thing about him. I mentioned the failure of the Bernie Sanders movement with Marianne Williamson. And she's like, man, if you guys feel that way, you shouldn't vote for me. And I was like, Marianne, you fucked up. You should never told me that. You told me and my audience not to vote for you. And now they're like, oh my God, RBN, why won't you support Marianne Williamson? She told us not to during our interview. We gave $400 million to Bernie Sanders for him to turn into a war pig. Excuse me. That's why I keep bringing him up. Because there should be way more anger at Bernie Sanders. Way more anger. There's not enough. Not enough anger at what Bernie has done. You got Trump that is factually to the left on Bernie Sanders when it comes to foreign policy right now. And that's embarrassing to say. Big shout out to Reflect the Sun. Get him some love in the chat. I appreciate the solidarity super chat. It really will help the channel out a lot. Much love, my friend. Much love, my comrade. That helps out a lot. Thank you so much. Show them some love in the chat. That's a very generous super chat. I mean, a super sticker. Thank you so much. Let's see. Is there more? I actually do have two more quick things I want to cover tonight. So this is actually going longer than the average Nick at night, but hey, we having fun. We're having fun. You guys enjoying? Leave a like. Leave a comment. Let me know how I'm doing. I take this shit seriously, guys. Like, I really try to improve my presentation. I'm trying to slow down my speak. I grew up with speech impediment. I'll talk to them fast. So trying my best to put on a good show for you guys, man. I'm really trying to get better at this. So I appreciate all the support. We almost got we got like 600 people watching. So if you guys can leave us a like, it helps me out. Like I view this shit like I was like, man, I'm trying to get as good as this shit as possible. So we got another one from Reflect the Sun. You speak truth, Nick. Thank you so much. I really had nothing else to say. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Zoya is love. Zoya is life. Zoya is love. Zoya is life. My good friend. We gotta have you on Nick at Night, probably next week or whenever you're free. Whenever you're free. It's been a while since we heard from you, Zoya. One more quick story I want to show. I say that the theme of today's show, at least when it comes to the foreign policy part, is that cracks are starting to form in the West. You got MSNBC calling out Zelensky for being a maniac. You have Washington Post confronting Zelensky to his face regarding his reporting. And now you have Germany's Scholz. Some nations see Western double standards on Russia. Now, this is Germany's prime minister. What's his first name again? I always forget this guy's first name. Is it like Elon? Olaf Scholz. I say Elon. Olaf Scholz. So he's the German chancellor. Let me get that correct. The German chancellor, Scholz, look at this quote. Some nations see Western double standard on Russia. What? They're saying it now, guys. They're saying it. Influential countries such as India, Vietnam, and South Africa bark at criticizing Russia's invasion of Ukraine because they believe international principles are not applied equally. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said in a speech Monday, "You don't fucking say. You don't say. You mean the United States, the government that is funding the genocidal apartheid state of Israel? Are you telling me they're hypocrites?" You just now coming to that conclusion? I'm glad he said it. Dude, we're seeing more of this, and it's extremely exciting. Extremely exciting. That people are like, Man, maybe the reason why we are losing countries, maybe the reason why we lose in Africa, is not because they've been convinced by Putin propaganda and Chinese propaganda. It's the fact that we are openly fucking hypocrites. Openly hypocrites. You have Biden funding a genocide in Yemen. Unbelievable. You had him support a coup in Venezuela. They arming Israel, who's bombing Syria. Israel is bombing Syria. But now they're like, oh my God, man, I think people are starting to see through our hypocrisy. You don't say. Now I'm gonna read this other part. They're from Olaf Scholz. When I talk to leaders from those countries, many assure me that they are not questioning the underlying principles of our international order. What they are struggling with is the unequal application of those principles. What did we tell you guys on RBN? The United States is getting their ass beat in the propaganda war. Ass beat in the propaganda war. So when the United States said we stand for freedom, democracy, peace, everyone was like, man, that sounds good. Yeah, that sounds good, but you don't practice what you preach. That's what they said. Many assure me that they are not questioning the underlying principles. What they are struggling with is the unequal application of those principles. You have Israel, who assassinated Shireen Abdul Akleh, a famous Palestinian reporter, when she had a press helmet and a press jacket on. But you want to talk about Russia going after the press? Biden going after Julian Assange? You have Lula in an international coalition, including AMLO, that's calling out Biden for their persecution of Julian Assange. But you want to tell me you stand for press freedom and Russia do not? And China does not? Do you guys think that we are the only ones smart enough to see through this? Morning Joe can't. Sean Hannity can't. Anderson Cooper can't. But everyone else can in the world. Everyone else can. Glorious. What a development, man. What a development. A lot of chats. I want to get to some chats as well. Big shout out to my friend Didi as well. In the chat. There's one more part. I want to make sure I'm not missing any super chats. I'm doing a chat check real quick. I'm hearing someone chew my ass out. Someone chew my ass out for missing a super chat one day. And I do feel bad whenever that happens. So when I'm alone, I just got to make sure I double check. What did this guy say? So I just saw this. Come on now. Joe is in charge of changing his pants. That's what made Biden so scary. I said that before he was even elected. Like, dude, he obviously not calling the shots. So who is? The deep state, right? The ICC will do something any day now. We all love JB. Big shout out to JB. Make sure you guys keep JB in your thoughts. Still mourning his grandma's death. I'm still haven't recovered from my grandparents' death. My grandpa died 5 years ago. My grandma died last year. Still haven't recovered from this shit. So please keep JB in your thoughts. I think I got all the super chat stars. Wait, Black and Empire is here. Big shout out to Black and Empire as well. Okay, so there's one more receipt I want to read. The cracks are starting to form. The United States is beginning to fall. Syria's please don't. I know you guys already ripped me for saying Syria's Arab League returned proof that when the United States shadow shrinks, peace spreads. So you had the Arab League that returned, and that was led by China. China led the peace deals and negotiation with Saudi Arabia and Iran And now the war in Yemen may end because of this. So I want it to be 100% clear, guys. The war in the war in Yemen, the genocide in Yemen can potentially end because of China, because of Xi Jinping, not because of Bernie Sanders. Remember when Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna, they were like, man, we want to end the war in Ukraine. Sorry, we want to end the genocide in Yemen. Let the record show, Bernie Sanders didn't do it. Xi Jinping did. The Chinese Communist Party did. So this is a great hit, and the United States has been fucking humiliated by China's diplomacy skills. So let me actually read this quote. I actually didn't read the quote yet. They said the United States unabashedly criticized normalization with Syria and exerted pressure. The spokesperson for the United States Department of State openly opposed the readmission of Syria to the Arab League and a normalization of relations between United States allies in Syria. United States lawmakers even openly denounced the Arab League, the Chinese official said. So if there are a lot of people who wonder why Africa and the Middle East is supportive of China over the United States, it's because the United States openly antagonize against peace any opportunity they have. Meanwhile, China is getting shit done, man. China is getting shit done. So yeah, I think that's a large part of the quote. Let me see. Is there anything else I wanted to I think we're done tonight. Let's go. What a show. So I think I'm right there. Whenever the United States involved, peace does not flourish. So I think that's where we at. I'm gonna read this chat from Didi. I guess I'll read a few chats before I log off. I love how Nick never forgets that Israel is also bombing Syria and Lebanon, along with Palestine. That often gets left out. Thank you, Nick. So the funny thing about Syria and Israel is that the excuse that Israel gives for bombing Syria is very similar. Well, I won't say very, somewhat similar to what Russia is saying about Ukraine. So Israel bombed Syria because Syria is a country that largely supports the Houthis. So Israel says that they have the right to bomb Syria because they have to keep the Houthis depowered because they represent a threat to Israeli interests. So because the Houthis pose a threat to Israel in Syria, which is their neighbor, they are allowed to bomb Syria. Now, that's literally exactly what Russia says. Russia says that the Azov Battalion and Nazis in Ukraine are a national security threat to Russia. That's why they have to get involved in the war. So it's funny how the West is okay with Israel bombing Syria because they view Houthi involvement in their country as a threat, but Russia bombing and trying to denazify their neighbor is unhinged behavior. We just want consistency, my friends. Thank you for the super sticker, Matilde. So I think we're done for today. Thank you guys for watching. We start out with a very fun segment that exposed the problems of access journalism and the blind spots of Marianne Williamson supporters. Second part, we covered how the United States, the cracks are starting to form in the West. So hopefully you guys enjoying this. I'm going to do more Nick and I actually want to do more Nick and Nights solo streams because when I do solo streams, it allows me to cover more stories in depth sometimes. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'm just going to do a last check on super chats. I have the link to our Patreon below. If you guys want to sign up, we got $3 a month, $5 a month. That's a great way to support the channel. our Venmo Revolutionary Blackout, our GoFundMe, our Revolutionary Blackout GoFundMe. All that stuff help pay our labor, help pay our thumbnail creator, the people who help edit our videos and all that stuff. So the people who manage our social media, like we want to pay everyone their fair labor value, but we can't do that with resources that we do not have. That's why any support that you guys send to our GoFundMe, Venmo is going to be used to pay everyone their fair labor value at RBN. So much love. I have no outro video for you guys, but I appreciate you guys for watching. I'm going to put this funny ass thumbnail that Aaron made. If you guys enjoy these thumbnails, make sure you guys support our GoFundMe and our Patreon, because RBN got a lot of stuff coming up. And I had a lot of things going on in my personal life that I don't even want to disclose. But if you're in the Kansas City area, please email info at Rev Black Network. I think that's our email. Send us an email here in Kansas City. I'm gonna try to hold a meeting sometime next week, because I got a few mutual aid ideas, and I want to hold anti-war rallies, because there's no anti-war rallies in Kansas City. I want to hold an anti-war rally the same spot that we had in America for our march. I want us to meet at this park in Kansas City and demonstrate against the war in Ukraine. But that's gonna take some effort to organize. That's stuff I'm working on right now. Because RBN, we actually believe in organizing, not just being on YouTube. So if you're in Kansas City, email us. I'm running behind. I wanted to start in April, but guys, life is hard. Shit is hard. So I actually wanted to start this in April, but I had to push it back. So maybe June. But I know you guys have been waiting for the RBN chapter. They're coming, guys. It's a lot. It's a lot going on. It's very hard to start an organization. So if you're in Kansas City, hit us up. I want to start. I want to protest Emmanuel Cleaver. Emmanuel Cleaver voted for every single Ukraine package like all Democrats did. So my RBN chapter, we're going to do mutual aid, diaper runs, give people diapers, make sure people are fed, probably feed the homeless maybe like 2 or 3 times a month, plan anti-war rallies. Like there are a lot of ideas I have in mind. I want to have a meeting with KC comrades so we can brainstorm and I can learn from other activists who are more experienced than I am. We really building something from the ground up, and I'm very excited for it. They said get your permits. They see this is the kind of shit I need help with. But yeah, we're gonna do it, man. I'm sure we got a lot. I got a lot of good comrades in Kansas City. I'm sure we're gonna help. I'm not like the leader of the movement. I just want to get something started. So anyway, I guess I'm just rambling at this point now. I love you guys. Have a good one.